by Narelle Anderson, the Managing Director and Founder of EnviroBank Recycling. Today we'll be talking about how you've revolutionised the Australian recycling industry whilst making a huge impact on remote Indigenous communities. I'm so excited to chat with you and hear your story about rising to the top of a male-dominated industry, which is so relevant for New Wave and everything in between. So for anyone who isn't aware of what EnviroBank does, what do you do and how do you do it?
Well, I noted that you were all working on your pitches, and today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about my learnings and storytelling. But EnviroBank, essentially, our elevator pitch is we pay people for recycling. So we run a national network of recycling depots, and mixed in with that is a lot of technology and a lot of mobile collection services that we run in the Northern Territory. And in addition, we have a home collection service. So essentially, we are tech meets recycling depot.
In researching you, I've learned some fun facts about why this is so important. With these little the Coke cans, they can take up to 200 years to break down, and for plastic bottles, it's 450 years. But with your technology, you can just keep reusing it over and over again, right?
Yeah, so aluminium as a recycling product can be infinitely recycled. And the good news is that with the introduction of the container deposit schemes nationally now, they'll be in Victoria soon, there is a real focus on capturing that product and making sure that it makes its way back into a new product. So aluminium can be infinitely recycled. It has great recycling benefits, and PET can also, the PET from beverage containers also has a long life when captured the right way and recycled properly. And like I said, there is a real focus from the beverage industry now under a product stewardship program and a container deposit legislation to really concentrate on that particular problem.
And you use I'm assuming top secret technology, but the tech that you've brought into Australia now underpins the container deposit schemes across Australia and globally. Is that right?
Yeah, so we introduced reverse vending technology to Australia. This technology, however, has been used all over the global markets to underpin container deposit or bottle bill states for many, many years, long time before we brought it to Australia. We really saw this technology as an opportunity to focus on the problem of contamination in the recycling stream. And so you would have probably all heard or read or saw the book about the show that was about the waste and recycling industry last year that talked primarily about the challenges with contamination. And if we're going to look for circular economy outcomes, then we need to make sure that we can get this product in a form that it becomes a resource/commodity. And the way to do that is to make sure that we concentrate on the source separation problem. And when you're focusing on a problem, there's two ways that you can look at a solution. You can either the carrot or the stick, reward or incentivize. So we just wrapped a recycling rewards program around an education and using a technology to ensure that we could collect that product and have it separated by the commodity type, which added value. And that's kind of where it all began. So we weren't the inventors of reverse vending technology. I wish to say that we were. We weren't. But what we did do here in Australia, like I said, was wrap a rewards program around a technology so that we could have a conversation with the consumer at the point of consumption, which is really the most effective way to capture the product.
And was that back in 2011 when you were?
Well, EnviroBank started in 2008, and at the time, well, I've been in the waste industry for much longer than that, since 2000, and EnviroBank actually was a product that I had in my previous waste management company. And we brought the technology in to specifically tackle public place recycling and contamination in public place recycling. And then, of course, we also thought at the time that we brought the technology to Australia that it'd be great if we had a national container deposit system, and we were 7 years before our time. So for the ladies in this group that are just starting out as entrepreneurs, I can tell you that even the awesome ideas that you think this is a no-brainer, everybody's going to get it, sometimes takes a little bit longer than you expect. So don't be disheartened, keep going, because eventually the world will catch up with your good idea.
Incentivizing the 10 cents, I mean, when I used to look at it, you know, you just think it's changed, but considering the fact that 350 aluminum cans are made every minute all over the world, it's just the opportunity is just enormous. It's mind blowing. Yeah, the incentive pairing with cleaning up the environment is just incredible. I heard you've been called the recycling queen, and yeah, there's all sorts of awesome articles about, you know, you're the woman who does things that says can't be done. That must be pretty incredible, but also I guess spur you on that when someone says you can't do something, do you find that it gives you that fire to do it?
Yeah, it definitely does. And I have been like that ever since I was a child, really. So it's not that I came to be like that from the industry that I'm in. Although good thing that I built that resilience when I was a younger person. But I just have always had a belief that you can do, or I can do, whatever I set my mind to. And I just decided that no wasn't an option for me. All of that said, you know, some days are tougher than others, but if you know that you're on, and if you believe in the project that you're doing, then persevere, because good things will come out of it. And I like to solve problems. I was a kid that timed herself doing the Rubik's Cube. I was a kid that used to read those choose your own adventure books over and over again and choose a different adventure every time. You know, I love Sudoku puzzles. I play games with my little boy who's 10 all the time. The challenge is that I get into a game and then he's moved on to something else. So I'm playing Brawl Stars at the moment. That's not a very, mind improving game, but it's a fun game that I play with him. So I just have always been curious. And with that curiosity, there's a thought process behind that for problem solving and solutions.
But it wasn't easy, I guess, for you. You were saying about you had about having to change people's minds. Would you like to share that?
Yeah, so I have been in the waste and recycling industry for a long time. I'm 50 now, and I was in my late 20s when I joined. I worked for a gentleman that owned a commercial waste management company. I ended up buying the business from him. I didn't have any money, so I bought the business with no startup capital. That's kind of a story for another day. But I was known jokingly in the industry as the secretary that bought the boss's business. And I can tell you that I am a woeful secretary. But it was just interesting, the perceptions and the labels and the things that get attached to you as a woman in business. And most often it couldn't be further from the truth. But, I guess I've taken the view over the years that no matter what they're saying, at least they're talking about you. So, somebody's remembering your name. Maybe it's for a good thing, maybe it's not, but there's a conversation being had and you get the opportunity to turn that around. And, every challenge that we've overcome, every contract that we won, we were able to change that perception, and I was able to change that perception.
Also, just want to share this quote with the New Wave cohort that you've said, and it was at a summit in 2011. I think it was the container deposit scheme legislation where like how will it affect you? You were reframing it and reframing the question and said, it's time for us to all agree that we have to make change, and progress is impossible without change. And those who cannot change their minds cannot change anything. And yeah, powerful.
Yeah, and for those that joined after our chat before everybody came in, there's two ladies in here tackling the problem of single-use plastic. And, you know, like I said before this meeting started, we cannot have too many people focused on this problem. In the past, in business, people have gone, you know, well, this is the product and service that I'm selling, so I'm going to keep that. That's my intellectual capital. I've got to keep all those secrets to myself, and goodness knows we shouldn't share them with anyone. But I think that the world is changing slightly, and I think as we have more women enter the workforce, hopefully this makes an impact too, because women by nature are sharers. It's important that we share our knowledge. It's important that we share our experience. It's important that this problem that we have of single-use plastics, of recycling, of waste, of, you know, it's a massive, there's the collection of it, then there's the separation of it, then there's the reprocessing of it. It's a massive, massive market. We just can't have too many people focused on that problem, because every day the population grows, the problem gets bigger. And so I really love hearing about people that have, you know, thought about the problem and come up with a solution, because combined, you know, inch by inch, it's a cinch, right? So combined, if we all work on our own little pocket of the world or our own garden, then collectively we'll get to where we need to be.
And you're also not just making impact on the environment, but you do have that community aspect of your business, and making a positive impact on communities by jobs and that supplementary income. You know, I was reading a report on the poverty line in 2020, and it was written in February prior to even COVID, and the numbers were quite scary. And now that everyone's going to have to be a little bit more entrepreneurial, or, you know, do a second job or side hustle to make ends meet, where do you see and how has your business in the past helped with this?
Yeah, so, you know, I talk about the opportunity to be an entrepreneur without any startup capital. So I became an entrepreneur without any startup capital. My journey was a little different, but, you know, to start a business, you need money, right? What this cash for containers, container deposit legislation does is enable anybody that wants to go outside and collect bottles and cans the opportunity to earn an income. This couldn't be more important now, given the global challenge of COVID and the number of people that have lost their jobs, you know, in this country and in other countries. So a couple of things: if you're going outside to collect bottles and cans, obviously you can cash them in. So there's the money part. The second part is you're outside walking around. We live in the best country on the entire planet. There's no question about that. So you're outside doing exercise and meeting people, and you you know, obviously cleaning up the environment at the same time. So, you know, I encourage anybody that's stuck at the moment to maybe look at other ways, not just collecting cans, but what are the other things that you could do to make incremental income? What's that side hustle? You know, the way to create wealth is to have multiple sources of income. So, you know, collecting containers is one source of income. Running, you know, starting your new businesses, whatever they are, is another source of income. Investing in the share market, although I don't know that I recommend that at the moment, it's doing crazy things. Maybe keep your money in the bank for the time being until we figure out what's going on with the share market at the moment. But yeah, I mean, look for a side hustle. That's good advice.
Good advice. So follow your passion.
Yes, follow follow your passion, and don't be afraid to ask. I'm not sure how many men are in the group, but I think women are great listeners, but we're not really great at asking for the stuff that we want. We're great at serving. We sort of live our life in service of others, whether that's our children, our parents, or or the communities that we're in. We're definitely very service orientated, but we're not very good at asking for what we want. And I think collectively we need to do that more. And as women, we need to share our knowledge more and ask for, what's the worst thing? I say to my team all the time, you just need to ask, because what's the worst thing that can happen? Somebody's going to say no. It's no before you don't ask. And if you ask and it's no, well, you haven't really lost anything. But what if they said yes? What would happen then? So this forum, I really am excited about the New Wave concept and this program that you're running, because I feel like in the conversations that you have with each other, listening to each other pitch their business ideas, there'll be learnings in that you didn't dream that you would get, that they won't necessarily come off the program page, but they will come off the conversations and the connections that you make with each other through this program.
We absolutely do try and instill finding your passion and purpose in the program. I would love to talk about how the land is important to you and why you chose to follow that passion. I know you were from a long line of change makers. It's in your blood, but as well, just so intrinsically connected with your culture, and that you're taking care of the land, but not just on a local Australian scale, you're going global. So you've gone above and beyond.
Yeah, I think it is actually about making the connections with what rings true for you. And my mother is Aboriginal, and so culture, that side of my family, my culture is very important. So intuitively it makes sense. Didn't always make sense to me, though, I have to say. I got my first job at 14 and 9 months. I left home when I was 16. I left school when I was 16, and off I went on my journey into the world. I didn't listen to my mother at all, to be honest, when I was younger, and I didn't take the time to ask stories. We had quite a distant relationship in my youth, but I have a younger sister who has since passed, who was very close to my mum and took the time to ask my mum for her stories and the things that were important to her. And she used to say to me, you've got to come back home, and you've got to come back to culture, and you've got to come back to country, and you've got a responsibility, and you've got to do these things. And I was a little selfish in my teenage years, and I just went out to make my mark on the world. And it really wasn't until my younger sister passed away that I realised I did have a responsibility, and it is important to me. And so from that day forward, I took the time to make the connections, and really found my way back to my, what I think is my calling. But it certainly, I certainly didn't think that when I was a teenager. I was just like every other teenager that knew everything and knew nothing. Now I'm a mum, and I can sometimes hear myself say things, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm just now my mother reborn. I hear myself saying the same things, but of course, when I was younger, I wasn't ready to listen to that. And it's just really important to me now. It's the thing that makes me stay connected. And I think every one of us, that it doesn't matter where we come from, wherever we call home, whatever is our country, we all feel connected to that. we all feel connected to the place that we were born, and doesn't it make sense that we look after that place, and that we look after it for ourselves, but that we also look after it for our future generations, for our children and our grandchildren and our great grandchildren, if we get to live that long. So and it's, you know, it's not really a tough job. It's a beautiful country that we live in.
You feel a responsibility now, and making pathways for women founders and Indigenous women to enter the workforce. And you know, I've watched, you know, Ethnic Business Awards footage that you donated the prize money to a literacy organisation.
Yeah, so again, for me, from a cultural perspective, in Aboriginal culture, whatever we have is to share. It isn't for me. So my responsibility runs deep there. You know, I own a business now. I employ a lot of people, and I have resources and access to resources, and I see it as my responsibility and my charter to share that. Because I've been bestowed with the privilege of caretaking that, if that makes sense. And along the way, through my entrepreneurial journey, there have been key moments in my journey that people have reached out and helped me. So I think it's a responsibility, and I need to do the same thing. And something that I'm trying to teach my little guy is the joy that comes with sharing and giving. When you share something, whether it's knowledge, a sandwich, money, or a car, it doesn't matter what it is. When you share something that you have with somebody else and they really need that, there is an enormous joy that you get from doing that. So, you know, obviously there's a benefit for the other person, but I get so much joy and get so much benefit out of doing that. And, you know, now I have a company, like I said, that I employ 114 people, and I take that responsibility very seriously. And so the decisions that we make at EnviroBank within our leadership team, we really think about, you know, what impact that is going to have on the people that work for us. And, you know, we try and make decisions based around that. We don't always get it right. It's sometimes really difficult, but we do think about who's in our community and how decisions that we make are going to impact.
I also think you were saying that you recognise so much resilience and tenacity and a desire to make a contribution in the communities that you're involved with.
Resilience is a really powerful word, and, you know, I feel like at the moment in the world that we live in, that we have lost some of that resilience, and I fear for, you know, some of the young people growing up now that don't have those coping skills, you know, that people of my age seem to have. And I think it's something that we really, 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 really need to focus on. I think it's a really important conversation. I have a 10-year-old boy who tells me that he's anxious, and I watch him get anxious about not having done schoolwork, and watch how that impacts him. And, you know, again, having so many people work at EnviroBank, that's something that we really focus on, is making sure that we're listening and watching and can pick up when people need help, and not having the shame around having the conversation when you're not having a great day or a great time, and talking about anxiety and how do we deal with anxiety. And I mean, I did a talk not so long ago, and, you know, I said the whole planet is anxious at the moment. COVID is making everybody anxious. You know, every day is a new adventure, a bit like that storybook that I used to read as a kid. except that, you know, we knew when the ending was coming. You know, it was at page 64, this COVID challenge that we're dealing with globally. You know, every day there's a new surprise, and that's really tough. You know, even for resilient people like myself, it's really tough when you don't know, you know, which way you're navigating. Am I, you know, on a calm sea today, or am I going through a cyclone? Or, you know, do I need sails? Do I need a motorboat? Like, it's impossible. And I think what we need to do to deal with that is give ourselves a break and give ourselves permission to feel the anxiety and then reach out for some help and have those conversations. And being an entrepreneur is a journey full of anxious moments and challenges and rough seas, and but that's really life, isn't it? Life is that journey.
You said you were always very resilient growing up, but I guess as a leader, your team surrounding you, you would, I guess, try to instill them as a leader with resilience and these traits.
Yeah, I think a lot comes from fear, and when people are fearful, then they tend to get anxious and concerned and all of those things. So we really have an environment at Envirobank where it's okay to make mistakes. So have a go. We have a philosophy, have a go. Might not be perfect, but we've had a go. We're small enough to be able to do that. It's not always possible if you're working for a big corporate, but we're a small company that's founder-led. So we have permission to make mistakes. And then we take the learnings for that and take the next step. So we don't have a fearful environment around that. And that's really helpful, that people can go, oh God, yeah, totally screwed that up, and this is what I've done to fix it, which obviously helps with that anxiety and that resilience piece, and it gives people permission to innovate and to think and to be creative. One of the things that I say when I sit in a boardroom with my team, you know, it's my job as the founder to come into the room with an idea. But what I really love is when I start with an idea and somebody else picks it up and takes it to a whole different place. You know, I've got to come to the table with an idea. If I don't have an idea, we're in trouble. But what I love is when I come in and my idea, you know, gets pushed to the side because there were 7 other better ideas. That's really exciting, and that's how we innovate, and that's how we collaborate, and that's how we you know, have stayed in business for so long and will stay in business longer still. We don't worry and we don't look at what our competitors are doing. We don't compare ourselves to our competitors, and our competitors are big billion-dollar global companies. So, you know, resource-wise, they, you know, would dwarf us. We don't worry about what they're doing. I take it back to what I said earlier. We just worry about the part of the market that we can impact, and we just focus on doing that the best that we possibly can.
And what would success look like for you?
What does success look like for me? That's a good question. And well, from a planet perspective, it looks like everybody's focused on the problem and everybody's doing their bit in their own backyard to contribute to the solution. We are seeing action from the global beverage companies. We are seeing action from the global producers of products. Maybe it's not happening as quick as some people would like it, but we are seeing action, so that's positive. So when we live in a world where everybody cares about the planet and is just responsible for themselves, you don't need to be responsible for anyone else. You just need to do the right thing yourself, and collectively, you know, we would have an enormous reduction in climate change and all of those other things. I spent a good part of my childhood and a good part of my entrepreneurial journey not being well physically. So success for me looks like being fit and healthy. And, you know, even more so in these times. So I've had a couple of, you know, not so fun health scares. So success for me looks like being healthy, because if you've ever had the misfortune to be unwell, the only thing that looks like success is health. And I have a 10-year-old boy, and, you know, obviously I want to stay well and healthy and see him have babies, although he tells me that it's a good thing that he's not a girl. And I said, why is that, honey? Why is it a good thing that you're not a girl? And he said, oh, because, you know, no way I'd have a baby. That seems too hard to me. And I said, yeah, so the little story for you there is, when you do get married and have a baby, you should be very nice to your wife, because it's not an easy job. So thank you for acknowledging that at 10 years old. He's quite the little character. And so, you know, in terms of the business, I have a leadership team that report to me. I get great joy out of watching people grow in my company and then go on to do amazing things in their own careers. I sometimes call it the University of Envirobank, and I do ask people, you know, where do you see yourself? I ask in most interviews if they want to be the managing director. Most people say no. One person said yes to me. And she's actually on my leadership team, and I'm happy to move out of the way for her one day. But it's important to ask those questions to find out who the people that you have working for you, where they also want to be, to make sure that you're aligned. And I often tell the story about running a company is like driving a bus. And, you know, the bus goes from A to B, it goes to a destination. Along the way, it makes stops, and people get on and people get off the bus at different times, and they go elsewhere, you know, from those different stops. And so we just make sure that while we've got the people on the bus with us, that we're all wanting to head in the same direction. And when that's not the case anymore, then we stop the bus and let people off and let new people on. And when you talk to people like that, when they come into a job, used to be in the old, I say the old days, used to be when you got a job, though, you know, a mark of success was if you were in that job for 5 years or 10 years. Now success is if you've been in a job for 3 years. But I just always ask where people want to go, so that we make sure that we're aligned, and I can deliver and add some value.
It sounds like you absolutely mentor and support your team to take on those leadership roles and innovative thinking roles. We've actually got 22 teams in cohort 6, and they'll all be working together for the first time, most of them just meeting their new co-founders. What advice could you give them about, you know, utilizing each other's strengths, or, you know, just supporting each other through this process?
Communication. Whenever there's a challenge in our business, it's always about communication. Somebody didn't hear it, somebody didn't say it, somebody didn't listen, combination of the above. Every single problem, in my experience in business, comes back to communication. So communication. Tools, you know, being clever and savvy with the tools. We've got so much content that's striving for our attention at the moment, you know, in the digital world, but finding the right tools that the group can communicate with together outside of the actual sessions that you're running, because to get the most out of the experience in this group or any other business networking environment that you're in, it will always be about making the connections. And to do that, you need to have conversations. So you need the platform to have the conversation. We use a tool at Envirobank that's a global tool called Slack. And we use that, you know, we have different channels, and I love seeing the commentary and the comms with the different teams on Slack. You can use WhatsApp. We do a lot of project management. So teams working on projects together would use a tool that, called Trello. That's really useful too from a project management perspective, because that ties into communication. That makes sure that everybody's on the same page for the project and can access the information when they need. What we don't use often is emails. You know, there's that whole school of thought, you know, the zero inbox. My inbox has 8,954 unread emails in it. Okay, maybe a lot of them are shopping emails, I won't deny. But I simply read the top 10 emails and then move on to do something else. So finding a comms tool that your group is going to connect with. And it's probably not emails, because these inboxes are like junk mail boxes now. They're full of all sorts of rubbish that distracts you from doing the thing that you're meant to be doing.
People get, I guess, bombarded by technology these days. Different pings from, you know, it could be Facebook Messenger, Slack, Teams, emails. You know, your work is incredibly important, but how do you stay present when you're not working and you're at home and taking time for yourself? Like, do you get that chance?
Yeah, I'm very structured. So when I come home, I'm home. I do start work at 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm awake at that time. So I start my day, you know, lining up, sending my Slack messages or putting things on different people's Trello boards. So I do start my day early. When I come home, I'm finished. I do take time out in terms of, you know, annual leave. I do absolutely insist that when my team have annual leave or sick days, that means that you are completely offline. And in fact, I say, if, you know, because often people say, oh no, but I'll be available. And I say, no, that's a problem for me if you think that you need to be available, because that's not a holiday. It's not a holiday if somebody's going to call you and ask you some random question. A holiday is when you just have a holiday with your family or whatever. So I'm very structured with my team, and so therefore very, very structured with myself. I really hate the mobile phone. So it's hard to get me to pick up the mobile phone. I used to own a commercial waste management company, and every time the phone rang, it was because a wheel had fallen off a truck and it was late at night. So now I have anxiety around mobile phones. So if you're looking for me and you really want me to call you, you're going to have to text me and then I'll call you back, but I rarely answer the phone. Yeah, I just focus on the things that are important to me. I allocate my time. I allocate time to read. I allocate time to research. I allocate time to have conversations. I use the clock on my phone. It's got a little alarm on it. So I literally have this clock set up every day so that the alarm goes off, and then I know I'm meant to be doing something else, and I stop and go and do whatever it is that I'm needing to do. At the moment, I'm set my alarm. It goes off every 2 hours because I'm attempting keto eating, because one of my friends lost 13 kilos. So I'm going to have a go. But I don't know if anybody in here's done keto. It's not that easy. Now I curse that thing when it goes off. I'm like, damn it.
I think people can definitely relate to that, especially now that our workplace is in our home and really, we don't know what day it is.
Yeah, I have the alarm. I use the alarm, and I teach my team to do the same thing, because you do need to shift your focus. It's not productive, you know, especially it's just not productive. It's not good for you to sit at the desk for all those hours. You do have to get up and move around, and I have a limited amount of time in each day, as everybody does. And so to get the most out of my day, I literally start my day with, we call them frogs at Envirobank. You know, what are my 3 frogs? What are the 3 things that I need to do today? And if I don't do them today, are going to cause me problem tomorrow. And a good day for me is if I just get those 3 things done. And that's also the way that I manage my team, because at Envirobank, you know, there's always something that we can do. But let's just focus on the stuff that's important and not worry about what's not important. And if I'm hosting a toolbox talk, I actually give people red frogs. I won't be doing that on keto anymore. That's another thing that I'm going to lose. But anyway, I give people red frogs and I ask them, here's your 3 red frogs, tell me what they're for. And you're only allowed to eat them when you've done that task. And it's a bit of fun. And when I leave the...
It's almost like your incentive to the working life. I think that's so much fun.
It is fun, and you've got to, that's the thing too, you know, think about how much time you're going to be in your business, how much time you're going to be at work. And you need to have fun doing that. You've got, you know, you don't want to go to a place and spend so much time where it's a horrible place to work and everybody's fearful. So we play games a lot. At EnviroBank, we do stand-ups where we do, you know, 1-word openers and 1-word closes. I use that to take the pulse to see how people are. You can tell a lot from somebody's 1 word. We, a couple of months ago, played musical chairs. I did a speaking event and with an airline, and they gave me a flight, and I wasn't able to use it because I was always on a plane anyway. So just randomly I happened to be in the office, and there were 7 other people with me early in the office, and I played musical chairs with them and gave away the airline ticket. And that was fun because, you know, it's fun watching grown people play musical chairs. We just change it up a bit. Yeah. And that brings people's creativity out as well.
Totally. Organically, it's very hard to connect with people online.
And we're fearful of embarrassing ourselves. We're fearful, you know, God, I shouldn't do that because what will people think of me? And I would say to you, who cares? You know, you should care about what your family thinks about you, and you should, you know, you should be aligned with your values, but you shouldn't worry what other people, you shouldn't worry so much about what other people think about you, because unfortunately the reality is that there will always be somebody that has something negative to say. That's not something that you can change. And that's not something that you should cast your mind to. That doesn't, you know, you've only got so many hours and minutes in the day, and that should not be one of your 3 frogs that you work on. You should leave that where it is, in the cupboard and with the person that's, you know, down on the world. Because the reality is there's some people in life that if they won 10 million, they'd say it should have been 20. That are never happy with what is given. And if that's not you, don't cast your mind to that corner.
I know you've been doing a lot of speaking events. What advice would you have to the new wavers who most would be pitching their passionate idea for the first time? What advice would you have for them to just, you know, dig into that passion?
Be courageous. If you don't know, ask. And then you'll find, and then you'll find the answers, and then you'll find your tribe. So if you don't know, ask, be courageous, practice your pitch. The girl that spoke earlier, before everybody joined,
Scrunchy?
Yeah, with the scrunch, yeah, I love it. Very catchy, and her pitch was perfect. I understood exactly what it is that her business does. So play with your pitches, you know, try them out on random people, and have some fun. And, you know, I do more speaking now than I've done before, but I do speaking with a purpose and with one purpose only, and that is if my story or any of the comments that I make can add value, inspire, motivate, change people's minds, get people thinking, whatever, then that makes me feel good. And I really mostly do it in women's groups, because I know that we struggle to ask questions, and because I've built a company now, you know, I've got a few learnings under my belt, and I will make myself available to anybody in this forum that sends me a note and asks a question, because it's a safe place to ask a question. And if I've got a connection or an experience that I can share, then I'm so happy to share it, because I did get some of that support, but probably could have done with more.
For people who didn't hear the ideas at the beginning, there are actually two ideas related to recycling. I'm sure they were either directly influenced or, inspired by the work that you've done to change the conversation about recycling and about the environment. Any other channels that they should follow along to see?
Yeah, so it would be crazy of me not to do a company plug. So you could follow us on Instagram, EnviroBank on Instagram or EnviroBank on Facebook, and that's where we tell most of our stories. And if it's me personally, then LinkedIn. Thank you for Zooming with me this afternoon. Reach out if I can help you in any way.